Welcome back to the English Hour, everyone. Today, we have a really exciting and essential topic for all of you who are looking to improve your English fluency. Jacob is joining me again, and we're going to discuss how to become fluent in English. Jacob, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Sophia. I'm super excited about today's topic. Becoming fluent in English is something that takes time and effort, but it's definitely achievable. And I can't wait to share some tips with everyone.
Absolutely. A lot of people dream of becoming fluent in English, but it can feel like a huge challenge. So, let's dive in. What do you think is the first step toward fluency?
The first step is definitely mindset. If you approach learning English with the mindset that you can do it, it's already half the battle won. A positive attitude helps keep you motivated and makes the learning process a lot more enjoyable.
I totally agree. It's important to believe in yourself from the start. So, let's talk about daily practice. How important is consistency when learning English?
Consistency is key. Fluency doesn't come overnight, but with regular practice, you'll notice progress. It's not about cramming all at once. It's about making English a part of your daily life. Whether it's listening to podcasts, reading, speaking, or writing, every little bit of practice adds up.
So, it's about integrating English into your daily routine, not just studying it for a couple of hours once in a while. How would you suggest someone start?
Start by setting small, achievable goals. For example, aim to learn 10 new words a day or listen to a 10-minute podcast. The key is to start small and build from there. You don't have to make drastic changes all at once. If you set small goals, you can gradually build up and feel accomplished along the way.
That's a great approach. Small wins keep you motivated and help build momentum. What about speaking? A lot of learners find it intimidating to speak in English. How can they overcome that?
The best way to get over that fear is by actually speaking as much as possible. Start by speaking with people you feel comfortable with, friends, family, or even yourself in front of a mirror. Don't worry about making mistakes. The more you practice speaking, the more confident you'll become. And remember, fluency comes from practice, not perfection.
That's so important. We often hesitate because we're afraid of making mistakes, but mistakes are part of the learning process. So, what about listening? How can learners improve their listening skills?
Listening is crucial to fluency. It helps you get used to the rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation of the language. Start by listening to English podcasts, songs, or audiobooks. Try to mimic the way native speakers talk. It might be difficult at first, but the more you listen, the better you'll get at understanding different accents and speeds of speech.
I love that advice. Mimicking native speakers is such a great technique. It helps you pick up on natural speech patterns. What about reading? Does reading have a big impact on fluency?
Absolutely. Reading is one of the most effective ways to build vocabulary and improve your understanding of sentence structure. You can start with simple books, blogs, or articles and gradually work your way up to more complex texts. The more you read, the more you'll expose yourself to new words and phrases, which will help you sound more natural when speaking.
And what about writing? How can writing help with fluency?
Writing is a great way to practice grammar and sentence structure. It also helps with organizing your thoughts. You don't have to write long essays. At first, start with short paragraphs or daily journals. Even simple practice, like writing down new words you've learned, can make a difference. The more you write, the more you'll become familiar with how English sentences are formed.
It seems like the key is to practice all aspects: speaking, listening, reading, and writing on a daily basis. But sometimes, learners feel like they're not improving fast enough. How can they stay motivated during those slow periods?
That's a great point, Sophia. It's easy to get discouraged, especially when progress seems slow. My advice is to track your progress. Keep a journal of what you're learning each day and look back at it after a month. You'll be amazed at how much you've learned. Also, try to find enjoyment in the process. If you love listening to music or watching movies, do it in English. If you enjoy reading, try reading books in English. The more fun you make it, the easier it will be to stay motivated.
I love the idea of combining learning with something you enjoy. It makes the process feel less like a chore and more like something fun to look forward to. And you're right, tracking your progress can be incredibly rewarding. So, would you say that immersing yourself in English as much as possible is important?
Definitely. Immersion is one of the most effective ways to improve fluency. The more you surround yourself with English, whether it's through TV shows, conversations, or even thinking in English, the faster you'll pick it up. You want to make English feel like a natural part of your life.
Immersion really is key. If you're constantly hearing, speaking, and thinking in English, it starts to feel more natural. What are some ways people can create that immersive environment, even if they're not living in an English-speaking country?
There are so many ways. You can watch English TV shows or movies with subtitles, join English-speaking groups online, or listen to podcasts and audiobooks. Another great way is to change your phone or computer settings to English. This way, you're constantly interacting with the language.
That's such a simple but effective tip. It's all about surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible, even in small, everyday moments. So, if someone really wants to become fluent, how much time should they dedicate to learning each day?
The more time you can dedicate, the better. But it's not just about the quantity of time, it's about quality. Even just 30 minutes to an hour a day can make a huge difference if you're fully focused. Consistency is more important than the length of time you study. Over time, those small daily efforts will add up.
I love that. It's about staying consistent, even if it's just a little bit every day. And I think the most important takeaway is that fluency is a journey, not a race. You don't have to rush, just focus on progress.
Exactly. Enjoy the process, celebrate your small wins, and don't get discouraged if it takes time. Fluency is about communication, and the more you practice, the better you'll get.
That's such a positive and motivating message, Jacob. Fluency is all about persistence, practice, and enjoying the journey. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thanks for having me, Sophia. I hope everyone feels inspired to continue their journey toward English fluency. It's totally achievable, and you're all capable of it.
Absolutely. And to all of our listeners, remember to stay consistent, practice regularly, and most importantly, enjoy the process. We'll be back soon with more tips and inspiring conversations to help you on your English learning journey. Keep up the great work, everyone. So, Jacob, before we wrap up, what would be the one thing you would suggest someone do every single day to improve their fluency?
If I had to pick just one thing, it would be speaking. Even if it's just talking to yourself or repeating what you've heard, speaking regularly is the fastest way to improve fluency. It helps you get used to thinking in English and connecting the words with real life situations.
I love that. Speaking is such a crucial skill, and it's so easy to forget about it in favor of just reading or listening. Now, for someone who's just starting out, would you recommend they start speaking immediately, even if they feel they're not good enough yet?
Absolutely, the earlier you start speaking, the better. You don't need to be perfect, and no one expects you to sound like a native speaker right away. The goal is to communicate, and the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Plus, making mistakes is part of the process. Each mistake is a learning opportunity.
That's so true. It's really about taking that first step and just getting comfortable with speaking. And once you're comfortable, it becomes easier to keep going. So, what role do you think practicing with others, whether friends or language partners, plays in this process?
Practicing with others is huge. Not only does it give you a chance to apply what you've learned in real conversations, but it also helps you pick up new phrases, learn how to react in conversations, and understand the rhythm of natural speech. Having someone to practice with can make the process more fun and less intimidating.
Yes, and it's a great way to stay motivated, especially when you have someone to encourage you. Even online, language exchange platforms are fantastic for that. You can meet people from all over the world and have regular conversations. let's talk a little bit about accents. A lot of learners get hung up on having the perfect accent. What's your take on that?
The perfect accent is a myth. It's more important to be understood than to have a specific accent. People from all around the world speak English with different accents, and that's perfectly fine. What matters is clarity. As long as your accent doesn't interfere with communication, it's absolutely okay to speak with the accent that's natural to you.
I love that. It's all about effective communication, not sounding like a native speaker. Everyone's accent tells a story, and as long as you're being understood, that's what matters most. So, what's the best way to balance pronunciation and fluency? Should learners focus more on one than the other?
That's a great question. I think both pronunciation and fluency are important, but it's okay to focus on fluency first. If you're fluent and can express yourself comfortably, pronunciation can be refined later. Fluency is more about getting your thoughts across, while pronunciation is about clarity. Both should be worked on, but fluency should come first.
That's a good point. Fluency is about expressing ideas smoothly, and pronunciation will naturally improve as you keep practicing and listening to more English. Now, a big question that always comes up is, how do you keep practicing when life gets busy?
That's always a challenge. But even with a busy schedule, there are ways to fit in practice. You can listen to English during your commute, practice speaking while doing household chores, or even learn new words while waiting in line. It's all about using small moments to your advantage. Every little bit helps.
I love that. You don't have to carve out big chunks of time to see progress, you can make the most of the small moments throughout your day. So, if someone is feeling stuck or losing motivation, what would be your advice to get back on track?
When you feel stuck, it's time to shake things up. Try changing your learning routine, watch a movie in English, start a new book, or find a new language partner. Sometimes, a change in perspective or routine can reignite your motivation. And remember, it's okay to take a short break. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
That's such solid advice. Sometimes a small change is all it takes to reignite that spark. And taking breaks is important too. We all need to step back and recharge sometimes. So, Jacob, one last question for today. What's the biggest mistake you think people make when trying to become fluent in English?
The biggest mistake is expecting immediate results. People often get frustrated when they don't see fast progress, but fluency takes time. It's a gradual process, and there will be moments where it feels like you're not improving. But if you stick with it, the results will come. Patience is key.
Absolutely. Patience and persistence are everything. Fluency is not a destination, it's a journey. Thank you so much for sharing all of these fantastic tips today, Jacob.
My pleasure. I'm so glad I could help. I hope everyone listening feels encouraged to keep going on their English learning journey.
And to all of our listeners, remember, take it one step at a time, stay consistent, and most importantly, enjoy the process. We'll be back soon with more tips to help you on your journey to fluency. Keep practicing. And we'll see you in the next episode. Before we end, let's dive into a few more tips. Jacob, for those who are just starting and feeling overwhelmed by how much there is to learn, what would you say to help them feel more at ease?
I totally get that feeling. When you're just beginning, it can feel like there's so much to cover. But the key is to break it down into small, manageable steps. Instead of focusing on everything at once, set achievable goals for yourself. For example, aim to learn 5 new words a day or focus on mastering a specific grammar point each week. It's about consistent progress, not perfection.
That's a fantastic point. Small steps lead to big results. So, when it comes to the actual content people should be learning, would you suggest they focus more on vocabulary, grammar, or something else?
I think a good balance of all 3 is important, but I would prioritize vocabulary and listening skills in the beginning. Grammar is essential, of course, but the more words you know, the more you can understand and communicate. Once you have a solid vocabulary, grammar tends to make more sense naturally as you see it used in context.
That's so true. Vocabulary really is the foundation of fluency. And speaking of listening, do you have any suggestions on how to improve listening skills?
Listening is a crucial skill, and it can be improved by exposing yourself to different types of content. Watch movies, TV shows, and YouTube videos in English, preferably with subtitles at first. Also, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, or even news broadcasts in English can help train your ear to understand various accents and speaking speeds. The more you listen, the better your comprehension will get.
And do you think it's better to watch content that's more challenging, or something easier, when you're practicing listening?
Start with easier content and gradually increase the difficulty. If you're watching something that's too hard, you might get discouraged because you won't understand everything. But when it's too easy, you won't improve much either. The sweet spot is finding content that's just a little bit above your level. It'll challenge you without overwhelming you.
That's great advice. It's all about finding that balance and gradually pushing your limits. Now, Jacob, I know we've talked a lot about studying and practicing, but how important is it to actually live the language? For example, immersing yourself in an English speaking environment, what role does that play?
Immersion is a game changer. When you're surrounded by English all the time, it's not just about learning words and phrases, it's about living the language. You start thinking in English, dreaming in English, and even reacting in English. Immersion accelerates the process because it forces you to use English in real-world situations.
Wow, that really puts it into perspective. Immersion is definitely a powerful tool for fluency. So, for someone who may not live in an English-speaking country, how can they create their own immersion experience?
That's the great thing about technology. You don't need to be in an English-speaking country to immerse yourself in the language. You can join online communities, watch English language shows, and listen to English podcasts. You could also try speaking with people in English through video calls or find a local language exchange partner. If you make English a part of your daily life, you're already creating your own immersion experience.
That's such a great point. With the internet, there's really no excuse for not surrounding yourself with English. Even if you're not living in an English-speaking country, I think it also helps to make English fun and integrate it into your lifestyle, whether that's through hobbies, games, or other activities.
Exactly. When you make language learning fun, it stops feeling like a chore. It becomes something you look forward to. So, whether you're playing video games in English, joining an online book club, or watching your favorite English language YouTubers, just keep engaging with the language in a way that feels natural to you.
That's such an important lesson. When you enjoy the process, you're more likely to stick with it and see real progress. Now, let's talk about mistakes. For learners who are afraid of making mistakes while speaking, how can they overcome that fear?
The best way to overcome the fear of making mistakes is to reframe how you think about them. Instead of viewing mistakes as something negative, see them as part of the learning process. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve. Also, remind yourself that no one is perfect, and everyone, no matter how fluent they are, makes mistakes. It's not a big deal.
Yes, exactly. Embracing mistakes as part of the process makes learning so much less stressful. It's all about progress, not perfection. So, Jacob, when it comes to improving speaking skills, would you recommend anyone practice speaking in front of a mirror?
I think practicing in front of a mirror is a great way to get comfortable with speaking. It allows you to see yourself and make adjustments to your body language, which is an important part of communication. It might feel a little awkward at first, but it's a great way to practice pronunciation and confidence. It's also fun to pretend you're having a conversation with someone when no one else is around.
I love that. It's like a safe space to practice without judgment. And over time, that confidence will transfer into real conversations with others.
Exactly. And remember, speaking is a skill that improves the more you practice it. So, don't be discouraged if it feels awkward at first. It's all part of the process.
So, to wrap up, if someone had just 1 hour a day to dedicate to becoming fluent, How would you suggest they spend that hour for maximum impact?
For maximum impact, I'd recommend spending 20 minutes listening to English content, 20 minutes speaking, whether that's practicing with a partner or speaking to yourself, and 20 minutes focusing on vocabulary or grammar. This way, you're hitting all the key areas: listening, speaking, and expanding your knowledge. Consistency is key, and if you do this every day, you'll see results.
That's a perfect plan. An hour a day really is all it takes to see steady improvement over time. Thanks so much for sharing these tips, Jacob. I know our listeners are going to find them incredibly helpful.
It was a pleasure, Sophia. I'm glad I could help. I hope everyone feels inspired to keep going on their journey to fluency.
I'm sure they do. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Keep practicing, stay consistent, and we'll be back soon with more tips to help you master English. See you in the next episode. Before we end, Jacob, let's dive into something important that many learners struggle with: finding motivation. How can someone stay motivated to continue learning English, especially when progress feels slow?
That's a huge challenge for many learners. I think it's all about setting small, achievable goals. For instance, instead of saying, I want to be fluent in 6 months, try, I want to learn 50 new words this month. Or, I want to watch a movie in English without subtitles by the end of next month. When you reach these smaller goals, it builds confidence and momentum, and that can help you keep going, even when progress feels slow.
I completely agree. Breaking things down into bite-sized, realistic goals makes the whole journey feel less overwhelming. It also gives you something concrete to celebrate along the way.
Absolutely. And don't forget to reward yourself for hitting those goals. Celebrate the milestones. Maybe you treat yourself to something small after finishing a book in English or after practicing speaking for a certain amount of time. It makes the learning process much more enjoyable.
That's a great idea. Rewarding yourself helps to keep the motivation high. Now, I've heard some learners talk about feeling embarrassed to speak with others in English, especially when they're still not confident. What advice do you have for those who are hesitant to speak with native speakers or more fluent learners?
I totally get that. It can feel intimidating at first. But honestly, native speakers or fluent learners are usually supportive and understanding. Most people are impressed when they see someone making the effort to learn a language. My advice is to start by practicing with someone you trust, like a friend or language partner, before trying it with strangers or fluent speakers. Over time, your confidence will grow, and you'll feel more comfortable speaking with anyone.
I love that. It's so important to start small and build confidence gradually. And remember, everyone starts somewhere. Even the most fluent speakers had to start at the beginning at some point.
Exactly. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And remember, everyone makes mistakes. It's part of the process. No one is going to judge you for trying.
Absolutely. Now, Jacob, as we wrap up, let's touch on one last thing. Can you share a few resources or tools that learners can use to enhance their fluency?
Sure, there are plenty of tools out there. I recommend apps like Duolingo or Babbel for structured learning, but for real-world practice, I love platforms like italki, where you can have conversations with native speakers. Watching TED Talks is also great for learning more formal English and expanding your vocabulary. YouTube is another goldmine. There are so many channels dedicated to teaching English.
Those are fantastic resources. And for anyone listening who wants to dive deeper into a specific area, like grammar or vocabulary, I'd also recommend using sites like Grammarly for writing or Anki for flashcards.
Yes, flashcards are a great way to reinforce vocabulary, and tools like Grammarly can help you fine-tune your writing. It's about finding the right mix of resources that work for you.
For sure. And don't be afraid to experiment with different resources until you find what clicks. The more you expose yourself to English in different ways, the better.
100%, it's all about making English a part of your daily life. Whether it's through listening, speaking, or reading, just keep practicing and keep challenging yourself. The more you put in, the more you'll get out of it.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to leave our listeners on. Remember, fluency is a journey, and the more consistent effort you put in, the closer you'll get to your goal.
Absolutely, keep at it, and you'll see amazing progress. You've got this.
Thanks again, Jacob, for joining me today. It's been such a great conversation, and I know our listeners are going to walk away with a lot of useful tips.
It's been my pleasure. I hope everyone is feeling inspired and ready to keep learning.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back soon with more tips to help you on your journey to fluency. Until next time, keep practicing, stay motivated, and don't forget to enjoy the process. Before we wrap up completely, Jacob, let's take a moment to talk about some common mistakes that learners make while trying to become fluent. What are some things that people should be cautious of as they continue their English learning journey?
Great question. One of the most common mistakes I see is focusing too much on grammar. Don't get me wrong, grammar is important, but fluency is more about communication. Sometimes people spend too much time perfecting every sentence structure and forget that speaking naturally is the goal. Fluency comes when you stop worrying so much about making mistakes and just start expressing yourself.
That's such an important point. I think many learners put a lot of pressure on themselves to sound perfect. But communication is about getting your message across, not just about using perfect grammar. Do you think learners should aim for perfection, or is it better to aim for progress?
I would definitely say progress. I mean, no one speaks perfectly, not even native speakers. Language is fluid and evolving, and mistakes are a natural part of learning. The key is to keep moving forward and not be afraid to make errors. Each mistake is an opportunity to learn.
Exactly, so, instead of aiming for perfection, learners should focus on improving and being able to communicate better each day. Would you say that it's also helpful to embrace some local or regional English accents or dialects along the way?
Absolutely, embracing different accents and dialects is actually a fantastic way to understand the variety of English spoken around the world. English isn't just spoken one way, and you'll encounter many different pronunciations, expressions, and slang. It's important to learn the standard form, but also to be open to regional variations. It helps you understand the language in a deeper, more authentic way.
I love that idea. It's one thing to understand the textbook English, but it's a whole other level when you can understand the way people actually speak in real life, with all their regional differences and slang. Do you have any suggestions on how to get used to different accents?
Great question. I'd say start by watching videos or listening to podcasts from different English speaking countries, whether that's the UK, the US, Australia, or even different regions within the US. There are also YouTube channels that focus on accents and how to understand them. Listening to a variety of accents regularly will help you get used to different pronunciations and even pick up new vocabulary.
I'm definitely going to check those out. And when it comes to understanding slang, are there any common phrases or expressions learners should know?
Oh, there's so much. Slang can vary a lot depending on the region, but some common phrases include "what's up" for greeting someone, "hang out" for spending time with someone casually, or "take it easy" for telling someone to relax. Another fun one is "that's lit," which means something is exciting or cool.
Oh, I love "that's lit." That's such a great one to know. And understanding slang is definitely a fun part of learning a language. It makes you sound more natural and connected to the culture.
Exactly. It also makes your conversations with native speakers feel more relaxed and less formal. You know, English is a language that's constantly changing, so staying up to date with new expressions can make you sound more fluent and involved with the culture.
I couldn't agree more. Language is so much more than just words, it's about the culture, the way people connect, and how they express themselves in everyday life. So, to wrap things up for now, what's the one piece of advice you would give someone who's struggling to stay motivated in their English learning?
The biggest piece of advice I would give is to remember why you started. It's easy to get frustrated when you're not seeing immediate progress. But if you remind yourself of your reasons, whether that's for travel, work, or just the love of learning it will help you keep going. Focus on the small wins and enjoy the journey. Fluency isn't a race, it's a process, and each step forward is a victory.
That's such great advice, Jacob. It's all about keeping the bigger picture in mind and celebrating the small victories along the way. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. I think our listeners will really appreciate all of the practical tips and motivation.
It's been a pleasure. I hope everyone feels inspired to keep going and to keep making progress in their English journey.
I'm sure they will. Thanks again, Jacob. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Don't forget to keep practicing, stay positive, and most importantly, have fun with your English learning. We'll be back with more tips in the next episode. Until then, keep working towards fluency. Before we end for today, Jacob, let's talk about something that can really make a difference in a learner's journey: surrounding yourself with English. What are some creative ways that learners can immerse themselves in the language, even when they don't have a lot of time or access to native speakers?
That's a great question. Immersion is key to becoming fluent, but you don't always need to be in an English-speaking country to do it. One easy way is to change your phone's language to English. It's a small change, but it's constant exposure. Another thing is to listen to English music, watch movies or shows with English subtitles, or even follow English speaking accounts on social media.
Those are awesome tips. I've heard a lot of people say that watching TV shows and movies in English really help them. But what about when you're just going about your day? Any ideas on how to fit English into your routine?
Definitely, you can label things in your home with their English names. For example, put sticky notes on your door, fridge, and furniture with words like door, window, stove, etc. It's a simple way to start thinking in English without even realizing it. You can also set a reminder to think in English for 5 minutes a day, just trying to speak about whatever is happening around you, like your routine or your plans for the day.
Those are fantastic suggestions. It's all about making English part of your everyday life, right? And even though it's not always easy, putting in those little efforts really adds up over time.
Exactly. Also, another great habit is to keep an English journal. You don't have to write much, just a few sentences about your day or what you're feeling. It gives you a chance to practice writing in a low-pressure way and track your progress over time. Plus, it helps with vocabulary retention.
I love the idea of a journal. It's a great way to combine language practice with self-reflection too. Speaking of language retention, Jacob, what's your take on spaced repetition for remembering new words and phrases?
Spaced repetition is one of the best techniques out there. Apps like Anki and Quizlet use this method, where you review words or phrases at increasing intervals. This helps you move the words from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. It's incredibly effective because it forces you to recall the word at the perfect time for reinforcement.
That's a really efficient way to learn. It's like exercising your brain to keep those words active. Another technique I've heard about is shadowing. Have you tried it?
Oh, shadowing is an excellent method. Basically, you listen to an audio clip or video, and you repeat what you hear as closely as possible, mimicking the speaker's rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation. It's especially useful for improving your speaking fluency and pronunciation. It makes you sound more natural too, because you're imitating the flow of a native speaker.
Shadowing sounds like a really fun challenge, and I love that it forces you to practice speaking out loud. Plus, it helps you internalize the language faster, right?
Exactly, and it helps you get used to the natural speed of conversation. Native speakers often talk quickly and use idiomatic expressions, so shadowing can help you keep up and feel more confident when speaking with others.
I can see how that would be so beneficial. It's definitely something I'll recommend to anyone who feels like they're not speaking fast enough or having trouble understanding native speakers. Now, Jacob, one final thought: what advice would you give to someone who feels like they've hit a plateau in their learning?
Hitting a plateau is completely normal It happens to everyone at some point. My advice would be to change things up a bit. Try learning something new, like a different aspect of the language. Maybe work on your writing if you've been focusing mostly on speaking, or try learning a new set of vocabulary or slang words. Also, don't be afraid to take a break. Sometimes stepping back for a bit helps you come back refreshed and with a new perspective.
That's really great advice. Plateaus are frustrating, but they can also be opportunities for growth. It's just a sign that you need to switch things up a little, or focus on something new to keep progressing.
Exactly, it's important not to get discouraged. The key is to stay curious and open to new methods of learning, and you'll keep moving forward.
I think that's a great way to wrap things up. There's so much more to language learning than just memorizing words. It's about staying engaged, being patient with yourself, and most importantly, enjoying the journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Keep learning, keep practicing, and most of all, keep having fun with it.
Thanks again, Jacob, for all the valuable insights today. And thank you, listeners, for joining us on the English Hour. We'll be back soon with more tips to help you on your path to fluency. Until next time, keep practicing, stay motivated, and enjoy every step of your English learning journey.
Thanks for having me, Sophia. Good luck, everyone.
See you in the next episode. Before we go, Jacob, I just realized we haven't really talked much about the power of reading for improving fluency. What's your take on reading in English? And how can learners make the most of it?
Oh, reading is absolutely essential. Not only does it help you expand your vocabulary, but it also exposes you to different sentence structures and grammatical patterns. My advice is to start with something you're genuinely interested in. It could be a book, a magazine, or even a blog that you find exciting. When you enjoy what you're reading, it doesn't feel like studying, it feels more like a hobby. And you can read aloud to improve your pronunciation as well.
That's a really good point. If you enjoy what you're reading, it won't feel like a chore. So, do you recommend starting with simpler material and working up to more complex texts?
Definitely. Start with something manageable like children's books or graded readers. Then, as you get more comfortable, you can move on to more challenging content like novels or news articles. Don't be afraid to look up words you don't know, but try to guess their meanings from context before doing so. That will help you become a more intuitive reader.
That's a fantastic approach. I've also heard that reading out loud can help with memory retention and fluency. It's like a two-in-one exercise. You're improving your vocabulary and your speaking skills at the same time.
Exactly. Plus, when you read aloud, it helps you get used to the rhythm of the language, which can make speaking feel more natural. And it's a great way to practice your accent and intonation so you sound more like a native speaker.
I can totally see how that works. It also makes the learning process more dynamic and fun. Moving on to another topic. We've mentioned a few learning tools like apps, journals, and reading materials. But what about practice? How can learners find opportunities to speak and practice their skills regularly?
That's one of the most crucial parts of learning. The more you speak, the more fluent you'll become. One thing I always recommend is finding a language exchange partner. There are apps and websites where you can pair up with someone who speaks English and wants to learn your native language. It's a win-win.
I've heard about those language exchange programs. Do you think they're effective?
Absolutely. They're not only practical but also free, which makes them accessible for everyone. You get to practice real conversations with someone who is also eager to learn, and they'll give you immediate feedback on how to improve. It's like having your own personal language coach.
That's awesome. And what about online communities or groups? Are there any benefits to joining an English learning group, either virtual or in person?
For sure. Being part of a group keeps you accountable. When you join a community, you're motivated to keep practicing, and you can learn from others who are in the same boat. There are tons of Facebook groups, Discord channels, and even subreddits dedicated to learning English. They're full of people who are sharing resources, giving advice, and practicing together. You can even find speaking clubs online that do regular meetups.
I think the accountability aspect is really important. It's easy to let things slip when you're learning alone. But with a group, you've got that extra push. Plus, it's a great way to learn slang and expressions that you might not find in textbooks.
Exactly, it makes the learning experience more authentic. Speaking of real life language, have you ever tried watching videos or listening to podcasts that teach slang or informal language?
I've definitely listened to a few. I think it's so important to be familiar with everyday language, not just formal or textbook English. Do you have any favorite sources for that?
Yes, a couple of my favorite YouTube channels and podcasts focus on real world English. Channels like Real Life English and Fluency MC have tons of content that introduces slang, idioms, and expressions that you can actually use in conversations. Podcasts like The English We Speak are great for learning conversational English, too.
I love how those resources really give learners a chance to speak like a native. It makes the language feel more alive and practical. Do you think there's a balance between learning formal English and informal English?
Absolutely. Have. It's important to have a good foundation in formal English because that's what you'll use in professional settings or academic environments. But informal English is just as important for casual conversations. You'll want to be able to switch between the two, depending on the situation. And the best way to do that is through consistent exposure to both.
That's a perfect balance to aim for. Learning both styles of language gives you flexibility and adaptability when you're speaking with others.
Yeah, and it makes you sound more natural. The more diverse your language skills are, the more comfortable you'll feel in different social situations.
Speaking of comfort, Jacob, do you think there's a point where learners reach fluency and feel fully confident in their English skills?
It's a process. I don't think fluency is something you ever really finish. It's more of a journey. Once you reach a certain level, you may feel confident, but there's always room for improvement. There's always new vocabulary to learn, new expressions to pick up, and ways to improve your pronunciation. The key is to keep practicing and stay curious.
I love that perspective. It's about embracing the journey rather than looking for an end point. That way, you can always keep growing and never stop learning.
Exactly, and it's what keeps the process interesting. The more you learn, the more you realize there's still so much to explore. It's the best part of being a lifelong learner.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Jacob, this has been such an enriching conversation. I'm sure our listeners will find so many valuable tips in this episode to help them on their journey to fluency. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge and insights with us today.
It was my pleasure, Sophia. Thanks for having me on the show. And to all the learners out there, keep going. You're doing great, and every step counts.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back soon with more tips and discussions to keep you motivated and on track with your English learning. Until next time, take care, keep practicing, and enjoy the ride.
See you, everyone. Keep up the great work.
See you in the next episode.